God of War Ragnarok last year was one of my favorite games. Not my favorite game, but it definitely was up there. And it was highly rated by a lot of people. A lot of systems were vastly improved, and the story was a bit different from the original game. I still do like the 28. I said original game. I meant the 2018 game. I apologize. Um, I still like the 2018 game a little bit better because I like the journey of that game. It feels more like an actual solid journey. God of War Ragnarok just felt a little bit fragmented to me. Fast forward to today, the Valhalla free DLC released for God of War Ragnarok. And when they revealed it, which was a few days or maybe even a week before at the Game Awards, it just, it looked like it's just going to be a roguelite mode. That's all it's going to be. You go through these different areas, you fight bosses, and then you die and you repeat getting gear and stuff like that. And Sony has been deep into the roguelite add-on for a little while now. Pretty much ever since Returnal sold so well, they've been adding some roguelite modes to their games. Um, One coming soon is the one for Last of Us Part 2 remastered, or whatever they're calling it. I guess they're calling it remastered, right? Um, but yeah, they're adding a roguelite mode there, and then Valhalla, when the God of War DLC was announced, it's like, oh, of course, Sony's really into roguelites right now. Of course, we're getting a roguelite mode for God of War. But I was very surprised to actually get a full blown story and plot along with this roguelite mode. And I should have known, honestly, because God of War is known for its bombastic and huge stories, especially these last two games with Ragnarok in 2018. So when I first started it, I was like, huh, that's weird. We're actually doing some stuff here. We're actually getting some motion with an actual story, which I was not expecting because most roguelike games the story is tied to getting to the end and that's pretty much it. Of course there's games like Hades and stuff like that that does intertwine the story with your deaths and playthroughs and stuff like that. And with God of War Ragnarok, it's kind of the same way in a way where every time you get to the end of a certain section, you will be reset back to the beginning, but you get a bit more story intertwined in each run up until like the fifth or sixth run, and then it just kind of lets you go from there. And I don't know how much I want to spoil about the story. I don't think I'm going to spoil too much seeing how new it is, and maybe you're just here to understand what this new DLC is, this new free DLC is before starting it up. But I guess the place to start would be if you are a long-time God of War fan, someone who's been with the series for a long time, maybe even since the first game. Maybe you played the first game after playing God of War 2018. Maybe you went back and played the HD versions or the PlayStation streaming versions or whatever. If you are a long-time fan, if you are a short-term fan who's played all the games, you need to play this DLC, okay? You need to play it. I am not kidding. This DLC encompasses so much of Kratos' journey, and it goes back and picks at several different games in the game catalog that he has. References, obviously, the first game is going to be referenced the most, with a couple things from the second game. The third game is referenced quite a lot as well because that's another best-selling one, of course, but it's also one of the better God of War games in general. They also even reference Ghost of Sparta at one point, which is a PSP game. I don't know if they reference Chains of Olympus. I don't remember them doing anything like that, and also I don't think they didn't reference, I don't think, God of War Ascension at all. I don't think. Okay, but I could be wrong. And then yeah, so essentially the story of this roguelite mode, you start off, you are summoned by a mysterious letter to go to Valhalla's gates and enter in the arena combat and whatever. And you don't know who the letter is sent from. You can only assume who it's sent from, but you don't really know for sure. And once you get there, everything's kind of locked up and closed off, and you got to force your way into Valhalla, which triggers the Valhalla rules, I guess, to cause you to be nerfed for your first playthrough. So you're not going to get too far because essentially you are no health, no runic, no luck, no no strength, and you'll probably die by like the third or fourth encounter. But it's a really cool first impression because you get in there and you're struggling and you're like, oh god, is this going to be like a super roguelite adventure where you start with nothing and then get somewhere? But of course, once you die and restart, Freya shows up with some of the oh my god, I am blanking on the names of these characters. Some of the Valkyries. Man, I almost fucked up this whole thing here. Some of the Valkyries appear. One of them being Sigrun, who is dating, or well, kind of interested in dating Mimir. But that's a side story. So essentially, Freya tells you the rules of Valhalla, and then you get to kind of start building Kratos' character. So you start off with just being able to choose like which shield you're using because the shields are a bit different in the game, and then you also get to choose what Fury mode or Rage mode or whatever you get to use or you want to use, and then you go in and do your first run, and you get pretty far until you reach a point where. If you don't recall from the first game, there is a section where you are pushing I don't know if it's like a soldier or whoever. You're pushing them in a cage, and you're going to sacrifice them to get through. I think it's during like Pandora's Labyrinth or something like that. And essentially, you got to kind of do this same thing where you push this cage with a dude inside of it, and boom, bada bing. Eventually, you have to reset the run because you. I don't want to give too much away, but you got to reset the run essentially. And when you go back when you're trying to go back in again, that's when you get to upgrade your character's strength and vitality a little bit with one of the new stones that appeared in Valhalla's little open hub world. And from there, everything kind of builds from there, right? You get a new I don't know. Actually, I don't want to say anything. Actually, I don't want to say anything just in case. Because there's some cool stuff that happens. Let me just say that. There's some cool stuff that happens. You get something new, which is like really cool. Okay, a really big reference to the past, too. And the story also builds from there, going over tales from specific points in Kratos' history. And then after you're done with the main story, you still have stuff to do after that. You still have stories that are told after that. Whether it's through breaks in the combat or through picking up specific things inside of Valhalla, the story continues to be told even after you're done with the main story, which is really cool. The only thing that I don't like, or maybe I have a bit of criticism about, is that if you are in a conversation with someone and you run into a combat encounter, whether accidentally or on purpose, that conversation will end. And even though they say, let's pick this up again some other time, they won't resume that conversation ever. Trust me, I've tried. Which is unfortunate because the story and the things that they're talking about are hard hitting and really well written. And sometimes you accidentally jump over one of those pits, and you get into a random encounter, and you're like, oh shit, and then the conversation stops, even though it could be the most interesting conversation that was going on yet. They will not get back to it, which is kind of disappointing to me because it's like I missed like maybe 3 or 4, maybe more like 3 lines of dialogue where I was very interested in what they were saying, but because I accidentally moved on too quickly or because I ran into an enemy encounter, I was robbed of essentially hearing what they had to say. And even though I could probably go back and watch like a video or something like that, it would have been nice to in the moment hear that. It's not a huge criticism, but just as a warning, if you are someone who is very interested in the story, if a character starts talking, just kind of stop your gameplay, because I was a bit too eager to continue playing the roguelite mode at times. And even though I wanted to hear the conversation, I was trying to get too close to the end so I could do this or that. But instead, I accidentally ran into a random encounter and stopped the dialogue completely. So like I said, it's a bit disappointing that it doesn't resume the conversation after the combat. I don't know if that's just an oversight by them or what, but yeah, just a little bit annoying. And the blame is mostly on me, honestly. The blame is mostly on me. So yeah, I mean, once you go through the trials enough and you get to the end of the story and you finish the story, you can really start to go through and level up yourself and all that stuff. So on top of your being able to level up health and rage, you can also up pretty much rank up any of the core stats from strength to vitality to runic to luck to cooldown. You can kind of upgrade those with the different currencies that you find in the Valhalla thingamajig, in the Valhalla puzzle or roguelite mode. You can also equip any armor that you want, but it doesn't give you stat boosts. But the visuals, you can get some new visuals for your armor, which is really cool. New visuals for your weapons as well. There is another stone that appears that you rank, that you get like improvements for your runs. So essentially, you can earn more currency. You can, find rarer items. You can do whatever, because essentially, when Kratos walks into Valhalla, he has the Blaze of Chaos, the spear, the Dropnir spear, and your Leviathan axe. That's all you have. And they have their base move sets, like all the different combos you can do and stuff like that. But the things like the runic attacks and the heavy runic attacks, you don't have any of those. And so the first chest that you open will be the one that you choose which weapon you want to upgrade. So depending on your play style, you may want to upgrade the Leviathan axe, or you may want to upgrade the Blades of Chaos. So you open up the chest, you choose which one of those that you want to do. In the next room, you get the first runic and like maybe a bonus to Kratos' character in the next room, because there's usually 2 treasure chests in the next room. And that's kind of how it is for the rest of the game, where you have different symbols on doors that'll lead you to specific chests that have things that'll help you inside of them. And you can choose to go straight to the first boss fight to get to the second level of Valhalla. If you want, you can do that right away. I always recommend building your character a little bit first before going in there. The funny thing is that when I played through the Valhalla DLCs, at least the story, I don't think I died during the story once, and I don't think that was by design by the developers. I think that's just how much, like, I really had to remember how to play the game. But once I remembered how to play the game, I went back to God form. One of the last things I did with God of War Ragnarok, which is probably what everyone did with God of War Ragnarok, there's 2 specific boss fights that are super difficult, and you just need to really hone in on your parrying and your dodging and your, opportunistic attempts at attack. And that's kind of what I rechanneled, and I felt like going through the boss fights, going through these different areas, I just really channeled that again, and I didn't die during any of my regular playthroughs. I did die afterwards when I was trying to upgrade the Dropnir spear. I wasn't doing very well with it, but pretty much every other run I've done has been a successful one, which is pretty interesting, pretty cool, I guess you could say. I did get through the story relatively quickly, I guess you could say, but the end game content after doing the story is still very much worth it to go through. There's plenty of challenges for you to do. Obviously, if you want to get the 100%, you need to go through this roguelite mode plenty of times, doing various different things in the mastery challenges. Also, after you finish the main story, sometimes you will get one of the, you know how in the main game there was that area with all the challenges to it, and you could choose which challenges you want to do, and blah 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 blah. That little sword appears every so often again to give you challenges to do during your run, like kicking people out of bounds or whatever, killing X amount of enemies without getting hit, that kind of thing. And there are other challenges to do as well that you can get that are a little bit less intense, but they give you like a negative before you get the positive. So some of them are like every time you dodge roll, you get frostbitten, or you can't use this specific thing, or this thing is decreased. Your weapon damage is decreased for 3 encounters or whatever. But then in the end, you get something really good, or you get something pretty good. So yeah, that's the gist of it. I mean, it's nothing like super original per se, but it is really cool, very interesting, and I really have been enjoying my time with the Valhalla DLC. And I don't know if I'm going to get back to it after this. I played it for like 12 hours straight, and I was like, you know what? I've done the main story. I've done all the little side quests to get the rest of the Kratos' memories. I don't really feel like doing the mastery challenges. I mean, I guess I could do them if I really put my mind to it, but right now I just have too much that I'm working on that I want to get done before the end of the year. because next year the games don't slow down, you know. So it's like I don't know if I'm gonna get back to it, but I really loved my time with the Valhalla DLC. I do want to talk about it more in terms of like story wise and whatever, but just know that if you're a longtime fan of the series, you're gonna love this DLC story, and you're probably gonna. I mean, if you're a fan of Ragnarok in 2018, you're gonna love the combat. So you know it's a win-win all around. And for a free DLC, I wasn't expecting it to be this packed and this good. Um, so definitely, I mean, it's free. Try it out. I would definitely recommend it. Highly recommend it. I'm giving the DLC for God of War Ragnarok Valhalla DLC, a 5 out of 5. Thank you for listening to the final review.